Hi everyone, I'm Tia Kantsara and this is Replenish Earth Live with Shashank Nimkar. I'm very excited to introduce you to this multi-award winning cross-disciplinary designer extraordinaire who enjoys a huge amount of work with materials, developing solutions that add value to society. And he innovated Earth Tatva as part of his GP, his graduation project for the National Institute of Design in India, using Earth Tatva's recycled ceramic material. He sort of aims to turn the linear ceramic production cycle into a process that really takes all the waste of the ceramic industry and bring it back into use. It's absolutely incredible what he's up to, and I really wanted to showcase his work. So without further ado, please welcome Shashank. Hi, Shashank. We can't seem to hear you. Oh. You're definitely not muted. Well, I mean, we can definitely see you. We can't seem to hear you at the moment. You might want to take your headphones out and put them back in again. See if that works. So I came across Shashank whilst he's getting his microphone sorted. I came across Shashank through the, not yet, through the Materionics group, who we introduced a couple of episodes ago. And it was really quite fascinating because not only the more recent award that he'd got, but okay, let's try now. Oh, no. That's really rather strange. I mean, you could mime. Do you know how to mime? I think it's kind of like... So, yeah, along with being a sort of industrial eco-designer, he's also an animator. Who knew? Yeah, that sort of like mixes purposeful execution with contextual narration. I'm really dying for you to hear him. But when you will, this will be really, really exciting. I'm gonna bring you backstage and then like bring you back in and hope for the best. Wait, one sec. Ta-da! Did that work? No. Wait. It just says that you're muted. So perhaps if you unmute now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I'll just put on the other headphones. Let's try again.
Yay! That's exciting. Okay, try and unmute again, because it mutes you every time. Yeah,
yes.
There you go. Yeah, brilliant.
That's good.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yay! Fantastic. Welcome to your first live session. This is
Thank you. Sorry about the technical glitch.
It's kind of like part and parcel of being online these days. It's either I can't hear you, your microphone is muted, or are you even there? Like, I'm sure. So yeah, Shashank, this has been so interesting to come across your work and also to try and understand exactly the kind of, you know, the background that you've been bringing in to explore as well. So what was it that brought you to this work? Because I remember when you were saying yourself that you had visited this site in India, and it just, you know, you were amazed.
Yeah.
Tell us what you were amazed of.
So in 2017, we visited this place called Khurja in India. So it's a major ceramic production hub. And so there me and my friends saw heaps of production rejects that were thrown outside the factories on the roadside. And so I have always been inclined towards I'm fascinated with the idea of turning waste into valuable resource. So I thought that this is a lot of wasted resource and something needs to be done about this. How come there's nothing being done on it? And because the more resources we waste, the more there is a need for mining for more of such minerals, and it's a vicious cycle again. So that's where the idea sparked.
It's interesting because we don't really think about clay as like mining, but actually every resource that we use from the planet is in somewhat way a kind of a linear process, isn't it? We sort of like take it out of the ground, or we take it from the environment, and then we do something with it. So what is it about the actual production of ceramics that really woke you up to that? Was it that there was so much waste of it? Like, was it that you could use it again, that there was a solution, but others weren't seeing it?
Yes, traditionally the production has been quite linear, and archaeology has shown us that ceramics don't biodegrade for centuries. I mean, that is what archaeology is based on in a way, to some extent, because we excavate these ancient sites and we come across these clay utensils and idols, and that's how probably we do carbon dating as well. And so that's the basic agenda. And so these days industries are facing serious issues about what to do with their production waste, because earlier they probably were able to dump it anywhere, but right now, because the pollution control board is getting stricter, that's not possible. And the space that we have around the industries is also quite limited. So what do we do with this all wastage and rejections from the industries?
And it's interesting because when we look at recycling and we look at the ways that we can turn waste into an item again, or just kind of remove waste out of the system, which is how we've been seeing innovation at Replenish Earth, how do you feel that it's different for eco-friendly offerings? Like, what is it about innovation, or even the thinking behind innovation, that makes it a different approach entirely?
So a lot of innovations that we see around obviously have to use some kind of binder to give this any kind of waste a form and make products out of it. So what happens usually is that we either use resin as a binder or cement, and it's a good way to go about it. But one thing to think about is that what happens at the end of life of these products that we make as recycled products, because resin is again a polymer which is hazardous for the environment. It leaches. And cement also, we can't do anything about it because we can't separate these waste materials from the binder, and that's how that it becomes an end of life. But at Earth Tatva we use clay itself, which is a natural binder, and essentially clay turns into ceramics after firing. So we are technically working with monomaterial, which helps us to keep recycling it for multiple production cycles, and hence if we do it right, we can practically achieve zero waste manufacturing.
That's incredible. So what does that mean for the actual industry?
So one thing is that they are less dependent on natural resources, because these are anyways very finite resources which we need to save for future generations. And second, all this landfill waste that they have, they can readily use it as their raw material. So it just reduces their probably different kinds of transportation costs, and also it's more controlled for them, and it's a good value addition for them as well.
It's kind of weird to come across some of the photographs of the industry as well, where you get to see these piles and piles of this ceramic waste, or just offcuts or things that just weren't used. It's almost like seeing this mountain of available resource. But talk me through the actual process of seeing it, because many other people will have seen it in your course, many other people will have observed that this is happening in the actual industry. So what was it about that for you that was striking personally? Because there's 1,000 different projects that you could have been working on.
Yes. So I always wanted to make something universal which all of us can use and keep making better and better solutions together, instead of making a product which I feel is quite restrictive, because it has got some limitations. But if we make a material and we can reduce mining, then probably we all can use the same material and yet make our beautiful functional products and contribute towards the society. So there's less of competition and there's more of contribution. That's how I feel. So that was
really
the main point. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one of my big arguments with economic systems is that we've created this sort of sense of competition, like the game Gladiator, where you both go into the ring and one person comes out dead. And it's this sort of like competition where you're gonna beat each other up, and you know, there's the winner is so human level, like the winner is very, very sort of ego level. Whereas if you sort of go beyond that, there's a societal win, there's also this sort of global win. So at Replenish Earth, we've been looking at what does it mean to take your ego out of the situation so that it's not just about you and it's more about society, or going beyond that. It's the global perspective, the kind of the I, the we as the community, or the it as the globe. And I feel that it's really quite tough to extract yourself out of that personal view, because you're living this sort of your life and you're thinking about your own contribution, or not thinking about your own contribution, but doing something on this sort of like local level. How can, because I really do see that your thinking was actually at societal level to work with the industry, but then also global level. How can people move from that personal view out to that global view? Like what were the tools that helped you to get to that global view and perspective, that it sort of instigated you to do something about it? Not just the fact that, I mean, there's piles of rubbish everywhere around the world, and I was actually quite shocked when I was in India, because some of your predecessors and I were walking around the campus of NID talking about the visual inspiration of what happens when you walk down the street and you see these piles of rubbish and actually just become blind to them, because it's very normal, it's normalized that you would see this, informal landfill site, but in the city. So, in the UK, you might find that out of the city, you'll find that out of, visual sight. But what happens when it's in front of you? And how did that sort of churn this, like, from personal to this global perspective of, interweaving?
Yes, so I believe it's all about collaboration. That's how the future is going to be. And because it's not a one person show anymore, we always have to, because none of us can know everything. And and the way I see it is that we should be informed about everything, but it's okay to not know everything. And that's how we are curious about so many things around us, and we ask questions and we have conversation, and that's how these ideas come to life. If we consider that we know everything, then the nuances get hidden under our perception of things, and we think that this just completely cannot be done. And that is what I faced when I was having a couple of conversations with different people from different industry backgrounds. So because they had such vast experience and really good technical expertise, that they never questioned this. And so that made me wonder that how come it was just never questioned. And right now, to go about this is that if we don't know something but we really want to do something, with collaboration we can achieve it. And so because I am a generalist, I'm not a specialist, so I try to collaborate with people who have this technical expertise, and then probably we work together to execute this vision.
How do you feel that vision has been playing out, though? Because the way that I'm seeing a lot of the exploration into a world beyond fossil fuels is that we're sort of like holding on to something of the elephant. It's like, what I'm seeing is, right, it's a very sort of localized experience because we're using our own senses. Coming back to that toggling between the personal and the global, right? This is a very global thing to have an impact on the world, where it has, it has a positive impact on other people, and not just a human thing, but it has a positive impact on all animals and all living beings or non-living beings. And we're really at that stage, I suppose, of humanity where as a population, and I'm not talking about the Tibetan and Himalayan monks sitting there in meditation, but and recognizing all of this through their own astral travel. But I'm really talking about the sort of the global consciousness as we see it on TV, on the media, where we're kind of understanding that we're holding this small part of the puzzle. When and how do we practice? Or are there practices? Of course, there's collaboration and contributing to yourself, but how do you find that? Because it's so tough to recognize what you don't see.
So it's all about conversations, because we don't know what someone else is experiencing, what they have already thought about. And sometimes it's about enabling each other, and in fact most of the times it's about enabling each other. We all have so many ideas and thoughts and observations, but we obviously cannot do everything, but we can always do a lot of things together. And this project is actually an outcome of so many different collaborations. So many studios around the institute have helped me. The institute themselves have helped me in a lot of things, and other professionals who, and what I realized is that when it's just that we don't ask for help. That's the thing. When we ask for help, people are more than happy to help you, because you are actually working towards something that is meaningful. And a lot of people wanted to do something, but probably because of some constraints they couldn't do it. And when you give them this opportunity to contribute towards a good cause, you really get a positive response.
It's actually quite interesting, isn't it, how our relationship with others is also our relationship with meaning. It's how we create that meaning for ourselves, and how that meaning for you through Earth Tatva is about sort of recognizing when people are holding your items, holding your bowls, holding your cups, holding your products, how people feel, and what have been some of the feedback from people. How have they sort of felt? What did you hear from them?
So people actually are quite fascinated about this, because they, as consumers, have been thinking that what happens to this waste when they break something at their place, because they know it just goes to landfill. And they were quite happy that if we are able to make something and use it, that reduces mining, so their own experience as a consumer also becomes better. And aesthetically as well, it's as good as any traditional material products. So that also helps them to accept it even better, because a lot of times it happens that people refrain from using recycled products because their aesthetics are a little different than your regular products, and it just changes the way they live their lifestyle. Because sometimes you want to use these products, but you don't want to show it to someone that it's recycled. But that's why we chose to make tableware out of it, because it's the only product that consumers choose to buy themselves, and it helps us to raise awareness among other people through them, to use better products and be conscious about their consumerism, because these products act as shock triggers when they host their guests, and that is how we start our discussions, right? If we are having some meal with our guests in a tableware made out of recycled ceramics, we always like to tell them that why did we buy this, what's the story behind this. And then of course, because it's a universal material, we can make any products out of it. But I think tableware is a very good point to start with and to spread awareness.
There was this image that I had of Kintsugi, the Japanese form and the art form of making something that may not, may have cracked or whatever, into this beautiful art piece, by putting gold into it or glazing on it. And you're right that there is this sort of intimate experience, I think, with our tableware, which, of course, as we share meals and as we commune, as we break bread, as we, in mind, I have the matcha, the sado, which is the ceremony of drinking matcha, and how you sort of hold the bowl and you turn it and have a look at the actual glazing around it. Does India have those sorts of rituals around tableware?
So rituals like Kintsugi?
Yeah, either Kintsugi as a sort of form of art, which is sort of already ingrained, I suppose, in the Japanese, industry, and normalized with the population, that this is even more unique than it was when you first got it, right? But there's also this sort of ritual of drinking tea and experiencing the actual glazing of tableware, which I think is actually quite unique to Japan. But I was curious, does that exist in India?
uh, I'm not very sure about this, but I don't think so. That is because in India we consider that if a ceramic gets cracked, it's not good, and we shouldn't keep it in our home. So it's always discarded immediately, and that is how also we, because a ceramic is a material where we can't fix it, and especially if it's a tableware. So that's again a problem with the material, and we need to be mindful about how it's repurposed after it's broken.
Got you. I feel like these rituals are really powerful in creating a sense of belonging, trust, connection. And I'm curious because, I'm racking through all my sort of Indian experiences of what we use in our own rituals and our either religious, non-religious sort of relationship with these sorts of tableware. And it's fascinating because, one of the things that comes to mind are these beautiful pots that are used to store water, to transport water, to transport things, this sort of earthenware that you see a lot of the population using, whether it is to cook their chapatis on the actual, the tawas, or things that are very much about that experience and touch point at home. It's a very sort of, inequality in the home, in the kitchen. And I feel that there's something about this relationship that we've created with this earthenware, that especially in India, that forms this relationship with very specific products. And I feel that, unpicking that is really fascinating. So for example, what's our relationship with materials and material science? What is it that we're so used to, even historically speaking? What kind of materials do we see, over the course of decades that are still there? And it's funny that you say that, in archaeology, you do have these beautiful earthenware that, would have been uncovered. I still remember, I don't know why this came to mind, but I was in Qatar, and it was literally the first week that we're doing an archaeological survey in Qatar, and this was about to become the site for the future sort of football stadium. Who knew? But this is about 2007, and we were doing this archaeological survey, and this pot from decades ago had been uncovered, and we were trying to sort of carbon date it, etc. But it was just this moment that the way that people lived in the past had just been connected with the way that people live today. So do you see these sorts of narratives in your work?
Yes, definitely. So it will show a narrative probably from an industrial perspective, because the processes have been optimized over the years dramatically. So that is what we should do, right? Reduce, reuse, and then recycle. So but because we already have a plethora of this waste material, so I chose to work with recycling of that material. But of course there are other people who have technical expertise who are optimizing on the process of manufacturing, so that the waste that comes out of the factories itself gets reduced. So that's the best thing, of course. But because we already have this waste resources already lying out there, so something needs to be done about that as well, and I chose to work on that part. So now probably it connects of how the products were in the past, how they were made, because sometimes these production processes get better over time, over the decade. So you could find that one piece that earlier used to use 20 kgs of material, probably now it's using 15 kgs. So that's also how we get to know about these things, by just going through the plethora of waste that we have and the products that were made earlier.
If people were to get in contact with you, of course there is the website, but what was it that they would think about, and then immediately they would say, okay, we need to get in contact with Shashank? So how can people be in touch with you, and what can they collaborate with you on?
Yeah, so one thing is about turning this project into a venture. So I would love to have their contributions towards making this into a viable business plan, and they could contribute in any way possible. So that's one thing. And we are of course now collecting people's registrations for our pre-launch notification. So if they're interested in such products, they can always visit our website and register for this notification.
Super exciting. Where do you see yourself in a couple of years' time? Like, how do you see it sort of evolving and developing, or the vision of it?
So I see this as turning all these manufacturers and brands into our allies. I don't want to see them as our competitors, because they should create all the beautiful and functional products that they are already making. But if we could collaborate with them together and grow, so they can reduce the dependency on the mining, and then we can offer them these ways of optimizing their processes and then reducing this material
Yeah,
consumption.
totally.
Yeah.
Totally. I see that Phil in the audience is really quite exciting, kind of like, coming up with all sorts of ideas. So I'm very excited for you. And it's been a real pleasure to have you on the show. It's such an opportunity to dive into your world of clay, basically, and to sort of mold this entire industry into something that can be replenishing Earth. Ultimately, we don't really think about earthenware and where it's going, how it's being used, but you were exposed to the industry and how much waste it was creating, and you decided to do something about it. So, as you've said, if anybody is interested in collaborating with you, in contributing and helping you, they can get in contact via your website. But also, if there are ideas that people have, then please do be in touch with you as well. So as Phil says, his brain is buzzing. Hopefully your hands are tingling as well, so that you can maybe, explore the art of the Indian version of Kintsugi, basically. Shashank, it was an absolute pleasure to have you on Replenish Earth, and good luck with your project.